And is it true that children who live in impoverished communities are more likely to have a novice teacher? Yes, that's true. Is it more likely that a child who lives in an impoverished community will have had, that school will have had multiple principals in a 5-year period? The answer is yes. Is it probable that a child who is of a particular racial or ethnic group is in a school where there is no reading program that has been prescribed? Well, that's changing to some degree in states because of state laws. But it is very probable that the instructional ecosystem is causing children to look like they can't.
I agree.
Welcome, everyone. My name is Dr. Danielle Dickey. I'm the founder and chief executive officer of Educational Epiphany, one of America's fastest growing publishing and professional development companies. And we're happy that you joined us on this episode of the Epiphany Exchange, the official podcast for Educational Epiphany. And with me, joining me today, two of my very esteemed colleagues. I'm even including you in that.
Hey.
Yeah, congrats, Jay. Yay.
Is our chief marketing officer, Richard Bork.
Hello, everyone.
And our chief operations officer, Jerry Richardson.
Hey, how's it going, everyone?
We're so happy that you guys are taking time out of what I know to be a busy schedule to engage, to listen to us engage in a conversation about what's important to children. So thank you and welcome.
Thanks.
Welcome, everybody. So today's topic, Dr. Dickey and Jerry, something we talk about and hear about a lot, and something we hear you say, Dr. Dickey, which is kids are testing like they're not taught.
Yeah.
And hopefully today what we're going to attempt to do to prescribe and diagnose and to inform is about what does it take for kids to not test like they're untaught, and what is the main issue behind that you see in schools that you visit all over the country?
Yeah. First, I don't think the test itself, is the only way that we measure, instructional care. Mm-hmm. That adults in a given instructional ecosystem have served children well. Jerry, as a former teacher, I know I can see your wheels turning right now. I know you're champing at the bit, right?
I am.
Why are you looking at me like that?
I was just saying where you were going.
Oh, okay. All right. I was going somewhere. I thought you wanted to.
No, I'm just listening to the train.
I was sitting here thinking about how horribly I tested in school. I could never perform well on a state test.
Yeah. And unfortunately, because one of the ages we live in now, right, is the age of assessment. Right. Mm-hmm. We definitely live in the age of technology. Right. Mm-hmm. But we definitely also live in an age that is strongly impacted by how children are assessed. I mean, in those assessments, they haunt us for all of our adult life, like, graduate school assessment, entry assessment. Mm-hmm. I know they're like ETS, they're working on changing, and universities are working on using other methods to determine whether or not a potential student gains admission, but those assessments, they still follow us.
Yeah. And we as teachers sometimes feel judged by those same assessments as well.
Yeah. I mean, I think to some degree we should be, right?
Absolutely.
But not to the point where we are debilitated in our ability to serve kids.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen people in tears, like teachers in tears, looking at their kids' data because they're like, I taught them.
Yeah.
We went over this. Yeah. They knew it before they went in there,
We did this for a month, Richard. We reviewed this, and I'm sitting in front of my test scores, and it's horrible.
Yeah.
You take it personal because you do spend so much of your time to perfect your craft, and you feel like there's somewhat of a disconnect.
Yeah. And there definitely is. I mean, I've even for many years I heard things like assessments are culturally biased. Now, as a member of a minority group, I hear you, right? But I don't, right? So is it possible that assessments are not accessible to all kids in equal ways? But it's not because of race that assessment is not I don't believe that it's I don't believe that's a direct factor. I believe it is a factor, but I think it's more about access.
Yeah.
And is it true that sometimes children of different races have, different levels of access? Is that true? I believe that's absolutely true.
Yeah.
But I think it's more about access and socioeconomics. Right? Those, because you can be, I've been places where all the kids are African American.
Right.
And they don't have access. And they're being taught by people who look like them. And I've been places where all the children are not African American. And they don't have access. And they're being taught by people who look just like them. And so for me, it's not race. It's about access and what's happening socioeconomically in a given community.
Right, but is the access, what is the access that they're lacking?
Yeah.
Is it instruction and instructional access that they all are not getting, or is it something else that's deep inside of the kids that we're not being able to like really get to?
No. No, you have
like I'm telling you, how do I give students access? How do I know they're not getting access at that point?
And what are you giving them access to, right?
Well, look, if kids are being given an assessment that by all accounts is written like at a pretty low level and they're having difficulty passing that assessment, it's not because they are from a particular racial or ethnic group.
Right.
It's because they happen to be a part of a particular racial or ethnic group in a certain institution.
Yeah.
Right. Right. And so it is the quality of what the institution produces, irrespective of race and ethnicity.
Got it.
Right. And is it true that children who live in impoverished communities are more likely to have a novice teacher? Yes, that's true. Is it more likely that a child who lives in an impoverished community will have had that school will have had multiple principals in a 5-year period? The answer is yes. Is it probable that a child who is of a particular racial or ethnic group is in a school where there is no reading program that has been prescribed? Well, that's changing to some degree in states because of state laws. But it is very probable that the instructional ecosystem is causing children to look like they can't.
I get it.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah.
Of a certain group.
Right.
So you're talking about access to resources, instructional materials, turnover
Yeah.
in schools.
Yeah. Okay, here's what's happening in our schools every day. And as a former principal, here's what I was up against in my very early, I think I was about your age. I'm a little younger than you, Jerry, in my first principalship. Y'all, Jerry's 33. Okay, and so.
So young.
I just put your business.
I'm 48, so.
Was that a FERPA violation?
I was 21, actually.
Are you 33, right?
34.
Oh, it's true. Jerry's 34. All right. So when I got to this school in a pretty tough neighborhood, in a city that will remain nameless, my kids had capacity.
Yeah.
They just didn't have access.
Yeah.
Yep.
So you telling me for years and years and years consecutively, you don't have access, but the assessment is culturally biased? No, the instruction was culturally biased. Right? Which what I mean, it's not by definition, but the quality of it was such that kids look like they can't, but they could all along.
I think my biggest thing is, if I'm in it, how do I know I'm giving them less of an access?
Okay. All right. I believe that our approaches to teaching and learning have to be, and Richard, you prompted me to say this all the time, diagnostic and prescriptive.
Yeah.
So give kids in a learning environment that is where they feel safe. Give them an opportunity to show you cold what they know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, unless they are genetically inferior in some way, they should respond to your instruction.
Yes.
Otherwise, it is the instruction that could be amended in some way to help to push kids to a better ability on a set of given concepts. Right?
And you're there's something on the tip of my tongue that I know we hear people say, like people in charge of instruction in schools will sometimes use the term "these kids."
Yeah. Yeah.
And what you guys are talking about is making me think of those instances.
Yeah.
Like Jerry, your question about like, how do I know they don't have access? Maybe it's not how do I know? Maybe it's, am I a person in charge of instruction taking the wrong approach to?
I don't know if I would say wrong, Richard. I would say, look, people will say, okay, here are a set of things that are best fit or best practice.
Right.
Is no practice is a best practice unless it's impacting all kids.
Yes.
Right.
Right? So before we say, hey, take this artificially developed resource and place it on top of kids in terms of like infuse it in your service to them, because this is a proven best practice. It's only best when it works for everybody.
Right.
Right.
Right? When it works for your high performer, your kids in the middle of the road, your kids who are on a trajectory of underperformance. So, Jerry, I'm coming back to what you said, but I'm going to align it with what Richard said. I don't know if it's about, am I doing something wrong? It's about, can I do something that's going to help an individual kid in my classroom?
Right.
That's a best practice.
I understand.
Yep. That makes sense. Yeah.
And so, speaking of best practices, we developed a resource called the Universal Language of Literacy.
Oh my God.
Look at that.
The tip of your hand.
Just
ready
just,
to go.
just happened to be here. Yeah. Right. Magic of television. So we know that a rising tide lifts every boat. And speaking of best practices, children who do not possess deep conceptual understanding of what we call the universal language of literacy, they will appear to not have been taught by people that we know did their damnedest to make sure that children had access, no matter where they come from, no matter what they look like. And it's not about correcting a wrong, it's about calibrating knowledge so that if a wrong has been done to a kid years before they showed up in my classroom or showed up in my building, I can correct that wrong.
Yes.
Right.
I can make sure that I don't add to the wrong.
Right.
I know what you were saying, Richard.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. It's just trying to like crystallize the word access and think of it in the context of all that you described earlier in the episode, which was, turnover in schools, resources that are either outdated or non-existent, right? How do you get
competing priorities, changes in leadership, teacher turnover,
and that child is still going to a desk,
right? Student behavior, hierarchy of needs not being met, because if you're going to bloom a kid, you got to Maslow them first. Right?
Yes.
Same is true about teachers in our classrooms. If you want them to bloom kids, you better Maslow them first. You better make sure everybody feels like they feel welcome in that community. They don't feel attacked. They feel supported and that they feel seen.
Right.
So I know we're just going to talk about universal language literacy, but I'm going to set it up. As a former principal, I used to walk around with my walkie-talkie every morning and say, "What can I do for you?" Door to door to door to door.
Right. And that alone is a shift. Like,
yeah,
Wow.
Right. Because if you make sure that you serve, as a school administrator, you make sure you serve teachers well, they're going to serve kids well. And if you can capture kids' hearts, they'll give you their minds. Same is true with teachers. You can capture their hearts. They will allow you to shape their service to kids. All right. So
which will help you determine your needs.
Yeah. It'll help you to figure out which adult needs you more or less, so you can focus your professional learning efforts, right? Okay, so what is this? The Universal Language of Literacy, 36 terms, no matter what state you live in. Because people say, oh, is this aligned to my standards? Please. No matter your standards, no matter what state you live in, north, south, east, west, suburban, urban, rural, children have to be able to analyze something. That's number one on the list.
Yeah. I think I just see, like, originally when I first started here at Educational Epiphany, and you guys put the literacy kit in my hand, and I looked at some of these terms, I'm like, I know them.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, very clear. Like, I know all of them. And you correct me a lot, and you say, Jerry, you've heard of them, but have you really calibrated your understanding, the knowledge of what these words actually mean, and then be able to then apply that to whatever you're doing with those particular terms?
So as a teacher, you taught elementary, right? Did you teach multiple content areas?
That's correct.
Right. So when you were asking kids to analyze, were they really analyzing?
No.
Or did they leave your classroom and go to another and hear a different definition?
I'm sure they heard many different definitions.
Of course they did.
For mostly all of these terms here. But also just slowing it down in a sense of this saying, hey, before we actually start the work, let's make sure we understand what the work is. And the Universal Language of Literacy is that, in a sense. It's like, let's calibrate our understanding of what this term means before we actually start to do it.
Well, here's what some folks will say, and we'll jump into the resource in just a moment. Here's what I hear some folks say, well, I'm a math teacher. These terms don't apply to me. Yeah, they do. About 28, 30 of the 36 do. Social studies, about 34, 35 of the 36 do. And the list goes on. And so here's what John Dewey said more than 100 years ago. If we break down the walls between and among the content areas, children will develop a greater capacity, a greater cognitive capacity. Elliot Eisner, Educational Imagination, book written in 1979, I mean, really ahead of its time. He says something very similar, that when we become connoisseurs of curriculum and instruction tools, then we'll be able to expedite improvements in student outcomes. So what does it mean to be a connoisseur? You know it well.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
We went to dinner last night after Jerry got here late. I'm not sure why you were late, Jerry. Richard and I, we were already there.
DCA. Delta.
Oh, I love you, Delta Airlines.
Yeah, we love you, Delta.
And I had red meat. But before I had red meat, I was drinking something that didn't go really well with red meat. So before the red meat came to the table, I switched over to something that made sense for the red meat.
In a connoisseur type fashion.
Right. Which means that in real time, we have to make sure that we are connoisseurs of academic language so that kids can switch content areas with this language.
So when I go from ELA to science and I'm analyzing.
Yeah. Let's pull out analyze.
Right.
Yeah. Let's pull out analyze. It should be card number 1, but mine are all mixed up.
I have it here, Doc.
Yeah. What does it say on the back of that card?
To separate into its constituent elements or parts. To break into smaller parts for the purpose of study or examination.
Yeah. Now, the top left-hand corner of that card, it says something. What's there?
Grades K through 12.
K-12. So wait a minute. Read that definition again for K through 12. Analyze.
To separate into its constituent elements or parts. To break into smaller parts for the purpose of study or examination.
Wow. So, that's a great deal for this little word, analyze.
Yeah.
And are we suggesting that kindergartners know that definition word for word?
Yes.
No.
Fact or fallacy?
No, but what we are expecting is for adults to understand it in the same way.
Correct.
So to separate into its constituent elements or parts. So to take a whole and pull it apart. But then there's a semicolon here in this definition, and it goes on to say to break into smaller parts. And then it goes on to say for the purpose of study or examination.
Right.
So what part of this definition could I give to a kindergartner by abbreviating it and by refraining from adding my interpretation to it?
Correct.
What would you give kids?
To break into smaller parts.
That's right. And then kids who are ready for more of the definition, you use the word constituent because that's telling you pieces.
What does constituent mean?
That's giving you a synonym for elements. That's giving you a synonym for parts. And so teaching kids more of the definition, you expand their vocabulary by doing so. Breaking the smaller parts is enough for a kid who is being introduced to the term. And then as kids matriculate, you give them more pieces of it.
Yeah.
But why do you analyze? For the purpose of studying something. Well, for the purpose of examining it, which means looking at it very carefully and learning something about it.
So then no matter where I go or what content area I'm in.
Yeah. Kids have to analyze. So see if you can find the word, see if examine is in here. Is it in here? No, it's not in here. It's not in here. But but that brings me to my point. How did I decide on these 36 terms?
Yeah. How did you get to them?
So I read everybody's state standards, north, south, east, west. And wherever I saw a term appear a certain number of times, I coded it as universal. So I read everybody's standards from state to state, and then I read everybody's standards from content area to content area, and these are the ones that got coded. They rose to the top like cream.
Cream always rises to the top.
Always rise to the top.
And so you're suggesting that when we have these universal language literacy cards, us as a group of teachers, we're studying these cards.
Well, yeah, because in order to transfer something to kids, I have to have it first. But then why be concerned with these? Because this is the language of the assessment. We started talking about testing and blah, 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 blah.
Right.
And that testing is not the only way, but it is one of the ways.
Yeah.
And I can, as a secondary person, I can teach the heck out of my content. I can teach the heck out of the law of conservation of energy. But how is it going to be assessed? Through these words. There's going to be some language that is unique to the law of conservation of energy, like potential energy, kinetic energy. But they're going to be wrapped in these like identify, determine, analyze.
Yeah. So I think, Doc, can you give us an example of like implementation? When do I do this? Where do I do this?
I think Jerry's pushing me the same way, but I didn't take the bait. But yes. So, when we, start a new lesson, start a new unit, these words are going to be wrapped in our learning targets. So let's think socialists for a moment. So you want kids to identify the antecedents to the Mayflower Compact. Identify the antecedents. Try and identify to the Mayflower Compact. Y'all found it?
I just had it.
Identify. I know what's on the back of it. It says, I haven't found it yet, but it says, here it is. It says to recognize and name on the back of it.
Correct.
So you want kids to be able to recognize an antecedent for what it is and name the antecedent. Right?
Yep.
So if I'm a social studies teacher, my job is to give kids a calibrated definition of identify in hopes that when they go to science and when they go to math and when they go to art, the team member, the person who's on the same team, will use the very same definition so that no one has to start over with kids. Because I've got to introduce antecedents. I can't afford to keep starting over with identify.
Right.
Right?
That goes back to your question and point earlier, Jerry, about like how do I, if I'm stuck on this one concept, right, and no one's moving forward in my classroom, how do I identify and target and resolve the issue?
I love that everyone is speaking the same academic language.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't matter where the kid is sitting within a building, they're getting the same definition. Plus, we're reinforcing the language within everywhere that they are going.
Yeah, and I had
when it's appropriate.
Yeah, and I had someone say to me recently, "Doc, I love these cards." And this young lady, she knew the definitions You're with me, Richard.
Verbatim.
Yeah, verbatim. But she asked, like, do kids need to know them verbatim? And my answer, she said, because we were told they should. I said, I never said that.
Yeah.
So then I'll come back to this antecedent of Mayflower Compact thing in a moment. But I said, here's what you don't want to do. You don't want to add to it because you could be inadvertently injecting error and giving kids yet another definition of the same term. Feel free to abbreviate.
Right.
But when you inject, you could be inadvertently confusing kids. Right? Because of the complex compound impact of being exposed to multiple definitions of the same term.
Right.
Right? So always abbreviate, don't add.
Makes,
It's like, oh, that makes sense.
yeah. That makes sense. I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So kids identify, recognize, and name the antecedents to the American Revolution so they can explain the impact of taxes on other revolutions
Yeah.
or other major uprisings.
Yeah.
So what does explain mean? It means to make something clear.
Yep.
Now, there are more words on the back of this card, but I don't think it's important for kids to memorize this verbatim. Just don't add.
What grade levels are explained? Is explained?
K-12.
Yeah. So a lot of these concepts start in kindergarten.
Most of them do.
Right.
And there's another set that are introduced in third, another set introduced around sixth. Just from, when I studied at the doctoral level at George Washington, and I had to write this dissertation, all of us did and do to this day, I hope, had to read volumes and volumes and volumes of work. So that we could figure out if there was a gap in the knowledge represented by the extant or existing research. And so it was my responsibility to read so much that I could see the matrix.
Yeah.
So what am I saying? The same is true here. I put everybody's standards on the page, every content area, every state, and I looked for the whole. And what is the whole? A lack of continuity around everyone's conceptual understanding of these terms.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And then we talk a lot about access. So if I'm a teacher, my classroom, and I'm working on these terms and these concepts with my kids, is there a place in the room for my kids to be able to look to see these terms, maybe like on a wall or a word wall, or like, is this the only resource that?
Yeah, I find that, teachers who have access to this resource, they use it in whole group. I see them on classroom boards, like with like a magnet clip, right?
Yeah.
I see teachers using these at a kidney-shaped table to intervene where kids have not responded as they might expect to instruction. I see kids flashing these cards with each other to learn them because the teacher realizes that they're going to come up in instruction. They're going to come up in assessment, formative and summative assessment opportunities. So they're doing some memorizing. I think some memorizing is okay because, everybody knows this. Like, I've been to Sunday school when I was little. And whenever I get in a situation, some things that I learned in Sunday school, it comes to my remembrance. And I use that in that moment to balance myself.
Right.
And the same is true with kids. If they've had opportunity, there's just some things kids must know. Like when you're a little kid, I don't know, Jerry, you might be too young, but Richard, you remember this. Your teacher would have you stand up and count by a particular number.
Yes.
She wanted you to memorize it so that when a mathematical problem-solving situation came up that was complex, you would have a solid foundation. You wouldn't be struggling with with some of the more complex mathematical concepts in the situation because of your lack of foundational skills or knowledge.
Right.
Right. And the same
Correct.
is true here.
Yeah.
When kids know this and they get to a test question, they can interpret what is being asked of them, and they can use their brain power to worry about the complexity of their problem rather than the complexity of what the problem is asking them to do.
Yeah,
Right?
it makes perfect sense.
Yeah. But to answer your question, I think it's important for kids to look up and see something like this.
Yeah.
Right. And what is this? This is basically a build out of one of the 36 cards. It's a build out.
Yeah.
And the build out is designed to make sure that while kids are working on citing textual evidence and social studies, they understand that just means location. So in a social studies class, when the teacher says, give me a citation for one of the antecedents to the American Revolution, the kids don't confuse the textual evidence for the citation. The textual evidence is what they found, but the citation is where they found it. It's the page number, it's the paragraph, it's the line number.
I love this. And we see this in use all over our Epiphany partner schools. Like you said, and we see them in PLC rooms, we see them in lunch rooms, we see them on lockers, we see them in the gym, we see them, you know, we've been into certain school buildings where you can't turn a corner and not see them.
Yeah. And, you know, if it is the language of the assessment, then it should be elevated to a degree of importance and value.
Yes.
I agree.
I think how you implement this is so masterful in a way that allows kids to make a connection. And so if you were to pull out the word identify, which means recognize a name, before you even provide that definition for them, you're telling them, hey guys, can you guys identify the ceiling?
Right.
Can you guys identify the floor? Can you identify the most handsome man in the room? And like, then they start laughing. But at the end of the day, you said, it means to recognize a name. You recognize that was me and you said my name.
That's right.
Now what happens is that kid leaves that classroom, they're going to remember that identify means to recognize a name.
Yeah, I think one thing that we can do better as public educators is just have conversations with kids about language.
Yeah, I love that you say it's just a conversation.
It's just a conversation.
Yeah.
It's not to be uptight, and it's not you don't have to call it a drill. You don't have to call it like a sheet work. Just do it.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So before we ask them to engage in work relative to any content area, do they have the gasoline in their tanks? Right?
Gas.
Yeah. This is a fuel to demonstrate mastery of content. And when people say, well, you know, I don't have time to teach, I'll just teach these in January. If you're a social studies teacher, you missed out on opportunities for them to understand the social studies content really well because the language around it is a mystery to them. If you are a math teacher and you say, well, this doesn't mean anything, this doesn't mean anything to me, but you ask kids to discuss something and they're like, what do we do?
Yeah.
What does discuss say?
Yeah.
On the back of the card.
Yeah.
That's what you want them to do.
Right.
And when the writers of the assessment use the word discuss, they're not saying have a verbal conversation. They're saying put it in writing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we love our universal language of literacy resources.
Do you now?
Yeah.
Okay.
We love them.
Let's take a test.
Yeah. Let's test us. Yeah.
Right.
Jerry, I was waiting for this.
Yet?
Yeah.
I think we still have 8 minutes in this episode. Okay. All right. So I'm not necessarily testing you guys, but what I want to do is I want to illustrate something for folks who are listening.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
All right. So the word is delineate.
Stop.
Delineate.
Just stop. And he picks the 612.
Okay, so this is a word that sixth graders need to know. So as early as sixth grade, kids need to know this word. It's a math word. It's a science word. It's a social studies word. It's an English word. It's an elective word.
It's like to tell the difference between one thing and another.
Oh, Richard, you know what you're talking about. You're talking about contrast and you're talking about distinguish. They're synonyms and they both mean to tell you how something is different. That's not this one. But thanks for your, very astute attempt. Jerry, you want to give it a go?
Isn't that like a list?
Yeah, that's a list. Now, what makes it a list? So look at the word delineate. It says, you see a word inside of delineate?
Line.
Line, which is another word of saying put something in a line, also referred to as a list. Okay, so now what would you see a suffix on delineate?
I never knew that. Okay. Yeah.
But when we become connoisseurs of language,
Yeah.
Right.
That's true.
then we can look at resources that are given to us that we're told to follow with fidelity, and we can have efficacy. We can challenge those resources. We can amend those resources.
Yeah.
We can make a different choice. Okay, do you see a suffix on delineate?
ATE.
ATE. What's ATE mean at the end of a word? Become. So what's delineate mean? Become a what?
Line.
A line or a list. So if you delineate the antecedents to the American Revolution, what did you do? You made it become a list.
Delineation.
Yes.
Yeah.
If you delineate the process for metamorphosis, you put the steps in a list.
I need to delineate my to-do list.
That was instruction.
So I
was just instructed.
I think what has to you were instructed. Yeah. So I think what has to happen is we have to be mature enough to say, hell, I don't know what that means.
Yeah. Yeah. It's hard. I think sometimes people like, when we are on PD and they have the kits in front of them, they're like, are you going to quiz us on it? And it's like, no, like that's not what we're here for.
Yes.
Yeah. But
yes, but no.
It's an idea for us to say, hey, I may not know these terms as much as I thought I did.
Yeah.
And now I need to, when these words come up, I need to pull my kit out.
Here's what I said to folks this week. I said, my responsibility to you as your facilitator today is to help you to become more familiar with more of these.
Yeah.
I probably said it a little more eloquently than that, but I said, every time I come, I'm going to teach you more and more of these.
Right.
So by the time the school year ends, these will be a part of your fabric. I said soul, but that they'll become a part of your soul so much that the default understanding of it is not only known to you, but it is calibrated so that when children come to you, the left hand doesn't undo the work of the right hand.
Yep. And then you also say that imagine if we did this for 180 days across all content areas.
That's right. What kind of kids would we be sending out into college, the workforce, entrepreneurship, military? Okay, so let me do one more because I think, Jerry, you're telling me we're out of time. Okay, we're out of time. Maybe we'll do more on this, but let me do this last one. Okay, central idea.
Informational.
It says informational.
Yes, informational, which begs what? What question?
Is it informational or literary?
That's right, because there are two types of central idea. This one is informational, right? So look at the word center. Oh, I'm sorry. God dang it. Look at the word central. Do you see a word inside of it?
Center.
Good job, Jerry.
Genius. So genius. Center.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, do you see a suffix on central?
AL.
AL. And what does AL mean at the end of a word?
Pertaining to.
So what does central mean? Pertaining to
the center.
The center. But the center what?
Idea.
And another word for idea is
Thought.
So what is central idea? The
central thought.
That's right.
Yeah. Boom.
Well, yeah, young kids say boom, and then they say something like,
if I could drop the mic, I would.
Yeah, what is this one? They do this too. Jerry, I know you know. You're 34.
Let's see if I'll get Aiden on the line.
Something like this, y'all. Okay, yeah.
Give Aiden a call.
Okay, so what's my point? When adults are mature enough to say, I'm not quite sure what that means, or maybe I am quite sure what it means, then it becomes our responsibility to sort of like spread the gospel, so to say. And what's the gospel? It is one truth.
I love that you use you use word parts to help us to uncover the meaning of these universal.
Because word parts are everywhere. Yeah. I mean, you know that. You guys have listened to me long enough to know that even before it was in vogue, Richard, you remember this? Yes. Doc Dickey's getting on stage.
Tell him not to talk about it.
Tell him not to talk about word parts. What? Then you don't want kids to read, because if you want kids to understand a page, they need to understand a paragraph, and they need to understand individual sentences, and they need to understand phrases, and they need to understand individual words, because they understand word parts. And if kids understand word parts, then they'll understand individual words and phrases and sentences and paragraphs and pages and chapters.
Let's go.
Boom. Another boom.
Let's go.
So, I'd love to get this resources into as many teachers and leaders' hands as possible, because it is universal. And you guys folks who are watching may not know this, or listening may not know this. We have a book, and it is entitled The Universal Language of Literacy. And so it's a conversation with America. In fact, it's a manifesto for improving America's schools around calibrated understanding of this finite number of concepts. So in this book, I talk about what these concepts are and what they are not, and provide folks with references to children who would have otherwise tested like they weren't taught, but they were given access.
Yep.
And it wasn't their race, right? It was their socioeconomic situation that determined their lack of access to it. It was their zip code that determined their lack of access to it.
Right.
And once we gave them access to the ideas that are represented by this set of cards, they were able to demonstrate great levels of proficiency and beyond.
Right. Well, we're really excited about this new book that you're completed, that you're done writing.
Done. Yeah, and I believe it belongs on the corner of every teacher's desk in America. It's it's that good, y'all.
Yeah.
I mean, and it took me a while to write it, and I've rewritten it, and it's in the teacher voice, and it's sensitive to people who are closest to the service of children. Okay. So with that said, everybody, thank you so much for joining us for this episode of the Epiphany Exchange. We appreciate you being a part of the educational Epiphany community. For more information about our products and services, we invite you to visit our website at educationalepiphany.com. Take care, everybody.
Take care, all.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.